This video was made in collaboration with the Hunter x Hunter wiki. For more information, check out the link in the description. The life of Kurapika, Hunter x Hunter. Kurapika is the last survivor of the Kurta Clan. He's a Blacklist Hunter and the current leader of the organization founded by Light Nostrade. He's also a member of the Zodiacs with the codename Rat. His goal is to avenge his clan and recover the remaining Scarlet Eyes. He takes the role of main protagonist in the Yorknew City and Succession Contest arcs. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going over the life of Kurapika. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Background: Kurapika was born to the Kurta Clan in a secluded forest in the Luxo province. As a child, he almost fell from a cliff, but was saved by his best friend Pyro. While he was unharmed, his friend Pyro had harmed both his legs and eyes, their condition worsening every day. Kurapika felt responsible for the incident and resolved to leave the forest and search the outside world for a doctor who could cure Pyro. Kurapika thus approached the Kurta Clan's elder several times to request to go to the outside world, but he was constantly refused. This sparked a long-lasting debate between the two, with Kurapika perceiving the Kurta Clan's fear of the outside world as unreasonable and backward. After one such argument, he talked to Pyro and discovered that the people outside of the Kurta Clan don't have Scarlet Eyes, which caused their clan to be persecuted. At some point, Kurapika and Pyro saved a female outsider called Sheila. As thanks, she gave them a book about the adventures of the D-Hunter in the outside world, which they read together, their desire to visit the outside world becoming stronger. After Sheila left, Kurapika realized that the Kurta Clan's elder had stolen the book and confronted him about it. Having an argument again, the clan elder finally allowed Kurapika to take the test to go to the outside world. Studying hard and passing all of the tests successfully, the elder gave him his last test, to go shopping in the outside world with a partner without revealing their Scarlet Eyes. Kurapika chose Pyro as his partner. The elder had them put drops in their eyes, which would cause their eyes to remain red for days if they changed color during the test. During the journey, Kurapika vowed to himself to find a way to cure Pyro so that they would be able to explore the outside world together. While buying groceries, Kurapika and Pyro were bullied and nearly swindled by 3 thugs. Kurapika managed to maintain his calm only thanks to his friend. The other people at the supermarket took their side and chased the thugs away. After the boys completed their shopping, they were approached by the trio again. This time, they mocked Pyro's condition, making Kurapika furious. His eyes turned scarlet and he single-handedly beat them up. The thugs revealed that the elder had paid them to rile him up. Pyro had them report that they've failed. Having recognized them as Kurta, the people who had previously defended them turned violent and frightened. On the way back, Kurapika noticed that his eyes had gone back to their normal color, with Pyro disclosing that the previous day he had heard that the elder planned to cheat, and so had swapped the drops for his eye medicine. Having passed the test, Kurapika was granted unrestricted permission to go to the outside world. Before leaving, Kurapika promised Pyro that he would return with the doctor and that they would one day go to the outside world together. Pyro had him also promise to have fun and enjoy himself while outside, having adventures just like the hunter they read about in Sheila's book. 6 weeks later, while Kurapika was away, the Kurta Clan was approached by the Phantom Troop and massacred, their eyes sold on the black market. The news reported the death of all 128 members of the Kurta Clan and of scores of dead bodies with eyes gouged out in their wake. As the last surviving member of his clan, Kurapika vowed to gain back all of the stolen eyes of his people and to arrest all of the members of the troop. Hunter Exam Arc. Kurapika makes his first appearance on board a ship that goes from Whale Island to the testing site of the 287th Hunter Exam. He, Gon, and Leorio are the only 3 candidates unaffected by a storm the night before. When the captain announces an even fiercer one is approaching, the 3 are the only candidates not to leave the boat. He initially refuses to answer the captain's question about his motives, but when he reveals that he's an examiner, Kurapika replies that he's the last of the Kurta and wants to capture the Phantom Troop. When Leorio objects he doesn't need to become a hunter to do so, Kurapika condescendingly explains a license facilitates the acquisition of information. When Leorio answers the captain that he's attracted by the material possessions provided by being a hunter, Kurapika remarks that money can't buy class. The two quarrel over their different opinions and decide to end it with a fight out on the deck while another storm is raging. When they're about to start, a crew member is knocked off the deck by a piece of wood broken off from a yard. Leorio immediately rushes to help him, followed shortly by Kurapika, but they fail to catch him. Gon jumps overboard and grabs him while the two catch him by his legs. They both reprimand Gon for his recklessness, then apologize to and make up with each other. Seeing that, the captain laughs and decides to take the trio to the port nearest the exam hall, Zaban City. Once they dock, the captain tells Gon to head for a lone tree up a hill, and Gon decides to follow his advice instead of taking the bus to Zaban City. Kurapika decides to follow him, interested in what he may do. Leorio later rejoins them. In what seems like an abandoned town, Kurapika and Gon hear people around them. An old lady, also an examiner, asks them a question which they only have 5 seconds to answer. While Kurapika and Leorio scuffle over the prospect of one causing the other to fail, another applicant takes the test in their place. While Leorio protests the unreasonableness of the question, Kurapika hears the applicant they let pass scream and understands how to pass the test, but the screener silences him and, after Kurapika agrees to it, poses them her question. Getting annoyed, Leorio picks up a wooden stick and attacks her, but is blocked by Kurapika, who explains to him that they've passed because keeping silent is the correct answer to this question. The old lady then tells them to go to the house in the forest to find a couple, who will be their navigators if they consider the trio qualified. Kurapika and Leorio laugh at Gon when he states he can't find an answer to the question, but become pensive when he suggests that they might one day be faced with a similar choice. The three then take the path opened by the screener. 4 hours later, upon entering the house, they see a wounded man lying on the floor and a woman being held captive by a Kiriko. The monster flees as soon as it sees them. Telling Leorio to take care of the husband, Kurapika and Gon chase after it, and Kurapika is impressed by Gon's vision in the darkness, and shocked by his ignorance about magical beasts. Gon clubs the creature and forces it to let go of the wife. Kurapika catches her and notices the strange tattoos on her hands and face. Leorio then shows up and says there's nothing to worry about the husband. Kurapika hits him in the face with his wooden sword, and it turns out this Leorio is a Kiriko in disguise, but Kurapika claims he didn't know and that he hit him because he thought he was left injured. After the monster runs away, he asks the wife who she really is, ready for combat. After Gon's able to tell the two nearly identical Kiriko apart, they reveal to be the navigators and that the couple they saved are the 2 children. The daughter states that Kurapika passed the test thanks to his vast knowledge and deduction skills, which allowed him to recognize the chastity symbols on her body and understand that she couldn't have been a husband. The 2 Kirikos and the husband and wife, who are actually their son and daughter, then explain to the trio that they've qualified for the next test. The Kiriko fly all 3 of them to the exam hall. When they arrive in Zaban City, one of the Kiriko takes them to the secret entrance of the exam hall. Kurapika and Leorio start a debate over why one would become a hunter, with Kurapika stressing the nobility of securing order, and they both ask Gon what being a hunter means to him. Before he can reply, they reach the site of the first test, a large tunnel. Kurapika, Leorio, and Gon see a lot of experts. Tonpa, nicknamed Rookie Crusher, offers each of them a can of his laxative-spiked drink, but Kurapika pours it on the floor after Gon claims it has a bad taste. First phase. The examiner, Satots, then appears and tells the candidates to follow him through the tunnel. He walks faster and faster, but Kurapika has little problem keeping up with him. While running, he reveals to Leorio the story about the stolen Scarlet Eyes of his people, and his determination to retrieve them and capture the Phantom Troop. The marathon finally ends when they reach the Milsey Wetlands, also known as the Swindler's Swamp. Satots warns them of the dangers and tells them to follow him through the swamp in another marathon. On the way, Kurapika, Leorio, and a number of other candidates are attacked by Hisoka, a man notorious for his bloodthirstiness. All of them are killed in a short time, except for him, Leorio, and Cherry, examinee number 76. After a while, Kurapika returns and sees Gon kneeling there with a shocked expression on his face. While running together to the site of the second phase, the Visca Forest Preserve, Gon tells him about what happened to him and Leorio. Second phase. At the site of the second phase, 2 gourmet hunters, Menchi and Buhara, appear. The second phase starts with Buhara asking them to cook roast pork. Even though the kind of pig that they need to catch, the Great Stamp, is the most dangerous pig in the world. Kurapika, his 3 friends, and many other contestants have little difficulties passing the test after they discover that these pigs have a spot of weakness on their foreheads. However, the next test proves to be a real problem, as the other examiner, Menchi, asks them to make sushi. When the second phase is on the verge of having no qualifier, Chairman Netero of the Hunter Association arrives in an airship, criticizes Menchi for losing her temper as an examiner, and tells her to give them another test, which she herself has to take. This time around, Menchi asks them to cook boiled spider eagle eggs, which hang from strong strings connected to 2 sides of a deep ravine. Even though they have to jump into a ravine to find the egg, Kurapika and 41 other examinees pass the test and are subsequently taken to the site of the third phase in the chairman's airship. Third phase. The third phase of the Hunter exam starts atop the Trick Tower, which has numerous passages. and they have 72 hours to get to the bottom of it alive. Kurapika, Leorio, Killua, and Gon are forced to form a team of 5 with Tonpa to pass through the first door. They advance using the majority rule several times on the way, and the road leads them to a platform set up in the middle of a bottomless abyss where they have to participate in a best-of-5 series consisting of 5 no-holds-barred one-on-one matches against a team of 5 long-term prisoners. Tonpa is the first to fight, and he deliberately forfeits the match to undermine his teammates. The third match is Kurapika's, and his opponent is Majitani, an imposter with a spider tattoo on his back who brags about his fake Phantom Troop membership to Kurapika. Enraged, his eyes turn scarlet, and he knocks Majitani down with a single punch. However, the match is still going on because he refuses to kill his opponent, who seems to be unconscious. Seeing that, Leorio steps in and makes a bet that Majitani is still alive, and pretends to drop him into the abyss. Majitani is so scared that he stops playing possum and admits defeat. The score is now 2-1 in favor of Kurapika's team, but they've lost 40 hours due to betting. Leorio's own match is the fourth, and he loses it after a rock-paper-scissors game along with a bet of 10 hours on the gender of his opponent, Larut. With the score being 2-2, Killua quickly kills his opponent, Jonas the Dissector, in the last match, putting it to 3-2 in their favor. But Kurapika's team now have less than 10 hours to reach the bottom. As they advance, they have to use the majority rule some more times and face many other obstacles, such as electric quizzes, a multiple-choice labyrinth, mind camps, go, etc. Thanks to a brilliant idea of Gon's in choosing ways, they managed to reach the bottom of the tower with just 30 seconds left, thus qualifying them for the fourth phase. Fourth phase. During the fourth phase, the remaining examinees are taken to Zevel Island to take part in a 7-day manhunt amongst themselves to capture each other's number badges. Kurapika's designated target is Tonpa, who in turn has Leorio as his target. After Leorio is tricked by Tonpa and Sami and loses his badge, Kurapika appears, knocks Tonpa down, and asks Leorio to team up with him, to which Leorio agrees. They take the badges number 16 and number 118 from Tonpa and Sami. Even though Kurapika already has 6 points from his own and Tonpa's badges, he still helps Leorio find his target, Ponzu, examinee number 246. As they're looking for the target, they again encounter Hisoka, who tells them to give them their badges if they want to live. Kurapika says that he'll give him the badge number 118, which only means 1 point to them. As for the other 3 badges, they'll fight with their lives to protect them. Hisoka agrees, lets them go, and takes the badge number 118. At the end of the 6th day, he and Leorio meet Gon and tell Gon about Ponzu. Gon helps them find her by tracking the smell of the medicine that she uses to defend herself. Finally, they find Ponzu, but together with her, they're trapped in a cave full of snakes, whose owner, Bourbon, examinee number 103, is already dead due to anaphylactic shock caused by her bees. Thanks to Gon's bravery and ability to hold his breath for an extended period of time, all of them are able to get out of the situation by using a soporific gas of Ponzu's to make the snakes sleep. With this, Kurapika and his 2 friends qualify for the next and also the last phase. The final phase. The final phase of the Hunter exam is an elimination tournament with a twist. The winner of the match will be removed from the list and receive his very own Hunter license, and the loser will be given more chances, depending on their placement in the bracket. Kurapika's first fight is against Hisoka. After fighting for a while, Hisoka whispers something to him and quits the match, allowing him to become a licensed hunter. When Illumi Zoldyck wants to go murder Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, Hanzo, and some examiners block his way. Later, he also requests that the Hunter Association examine the nature of Killua's act of murder against another contestant, Bodoro, during the final phase, and has a brief argument with Pokol, who wins by default thanks to Killua's disqualification. But they make up with each other after the exams ended. He then decides to go with Gon and Leorio to Kukuru Mountain to rescue Killua from the control of his family. Zoldyck Family Arc. Kurapika, Leorio, and Gon arrive at the entrance of the Zoldyck estate, the testing gate, on Kukuru Mountain on a tour bus. They tell the old gatekeeper, Zebro, that they're Killua's friends, but he says he can't let them enter until they can at least push open the first testing door, which weighs 4 tons, because going into the estate via any other way will result in them getting killed by the huge guard dog named Mike. The trio then accepts Zebro's invitation to stay in his house to train, using his heavy equipment. After 20 days, they're all able to open a testing door and head for the Zoldyck residence without any problem until they're stopped at another gate by a female attendant named Canary. She beats Gon up to prevent them from advancing, but thanks to Gon's insistence, she becomes more and more reluctant to block their path and finally asks them to save Killua. Kikyo Zoldyck then appears with her son Kaluto, knocks Canary unconscious, and tells them to leave. Shortly after she and Kaluto leave, Canary regains consciousness and says she's going to lead them to the attendance room. While staying in the servants' room, they're forced into playing a guessing game with some of the butlers of the family, which they manage to win. Kilo at last arrives and leaves the Zoldyck estate with them. Kurapika then tells his 3 friends what Hisoka whispered to him during the final phase. He would wait for Kurapika in Yorknew City, where the largest auction in the world takes place, on September 1st, to tell him some interesting things about the Phantom Troop. It's 6 months away until that day, so Kurapika says goodbye to his friends after telling them that he's going to look for some work as a hunter and arranges to meet up with them later in Yorknew City in September. Heaven's Arena Arc. At some point after parting company with his friends, Kurapika succeeds in finding an agency specializing in providing rich and famous people with bodyguards and hirelings. However, he's immediately told that despite his hunter license, he's not qualified for such work. The agent says that his hunter exam isn't finished. During Gon and Killua's training in the Heaven's Arena, it's revealed by Wing that Kurapika learned Nen after the hunter exam. Yorknew City Arc. Kurapika learns Nen in 6 months and looks for a customer who has strong connections with the auction in Yorknew City. At the beginning of August, he appears at the mansion of a collector who collects body parts to apply for a job as a bodyguard. In the mansion, he meets 5 other people, 3 of them hunters themselves: Melody, Bass, Shachmono, Basho, and Squala. A man shows up on the screen in the hall where they're waiting and tells them that if they want the job, they at least have to get out of the mansion alive. As he finishes, a group of 11 people who wear black hooded robes and masks and are armed with guns and swords suddenly appears and attacks them. Using his dowsing chain, Kurapika blocks a number of bullets fired at him and jumps onto a chandelier to avoid the sword users and observe the situation. Noticing that Tochino is the only person who's not being attacked, he jumps down, puts a knife at Tochino's throat, and orders him to stop the attackers in 3 seconds. Tochino obeys and makes them all disappear and tells them that he's a hunter ordered by the owner of the mansion to test them and that they can get out of the mansion now. Kurapika suspects that he's trying to confuse them. Using his dowsing chain again, he discovers that Squala is another infiltrator, which is further confirmed by Melody's, Bass's, and Basho's techniques. He and 3 other genuine applicants thus pass the test. After each of them completes another mission of finding a rare body part, they are all officially hired by the man who was on the screen previously, Dalzolne. In Yorknew City. Kurapika and the company's first task is to guard their boss on a journey to Yorknew City, where they'll be participating in the Mafia community's underground auction. The boss turns out to be Light Nostrade, the daughter of the Nostrade clan's leader. They arrive in Yorknew City on September 1st, and on the night of that day, the underground auction is attacked by the Phantom Troop, who wants to steal all the auction items. Some of Kurapika's comrades and many clients from the Mafia are slaughtered by the troop. However, having been warned about a possible attack via Neon's predictions, one of the Shadow Beasts, a group of the best 10 Nen users within the Mafia, has already removed all the items from the vault. Believing that the Phantom Troop has stolen them, the Mafia organizations in Yorknew City give chase, and Kurapika is instructed to join them. The Phantom Troop decides to confront the Mafia in the hopes of luring out the Shadow Beasts to question them about the auction items. One member of the troop, Uvogin, is an extremely strong enhancer. He single-handedly massacres a large number of armed Mafia gangsters. Seeing the spider tattoo on Uvogin's back, Kurapika flies into a rage. Despite his comrades' discouragement, he goes forward, takes advantage of the situation to capture Uvogin using his chain jail, then leaves on a car with his comrades. The troop immediately chases after him, but the pursuit is halted by the arrival of the rest of the Shadow Beasts. Back at their headquarters, Dalzolne tries to torture Uvogin to force information about the items from him. Despite being impervious to these attempts thanks to his strong enhancement aura, Uvogin reveals that the Shadow Beasts took the items away. He also suggests that, since the spiders couldn't steal anything, if they're to release him immediately, he'll spare their lives. Kurapika questions Uvogin about his comrades. On hearing that they were killed according to the spiders' plan, Kurapika hits him in a rage, managing to damage his nose and lips slightly. After Kurapika has left to meet up with Hisoka, Dalzolne calls members of the Mafia in to take Uvogin into custody. Shortly afterward, the Phantom Troop arrive dressed as Mafia members. They kill Dalzolne, cure Uvogin's paralysis, and free him. His furious shout upon release is heard by Melody, allowing Kurapika's teammates time to escape. Finding no one, Uvogin swears to hunt down the chain user, Kurapika. Meanwhile, at the prearranged rendezvous, Kurapika meets up with Hisoka, who tells him about his secret purpose of joining the Phantom Troop and offers to team up with him. Kurapika tells Hisoka to meet again the next day, September 3rd, at the same time. Meeting up with Melody and the rest later, he suggests that they get Neon to contact her father and ask for his advice. Light Nostrade promotes Kurapika to team leader and makes arrangements to meet them later. Meanwhile, Uvogin has managed to track them down. Kurapika stays behind to confront him. After agreeing to go to a place far from the city where they can fight freely, Uvogin and Kurapika face off in a nen battle. He manages to capture Uvogin and deprive him of his nen. After questioning him fruitlessly, he's forced to kill Uvogin. Kurapika's defeat of Uvogin makes him the main target of the Phantom Troop, who begins to actively search for him. On September 3rd, they catch Gon and Killua. One of them, Pakunoda, has the ability of mind reading through touching. Since neither Gon nor Killua knows the chain guy or chain user is Kurapika, Pakunoda assumes that they have nothing to do with him. Shortly afterward, Killua realizes that Kurapika is the one the troop are searching for, but luckily he and Gon manage to escape at night, before being questioned by her again. Just before Gon and Killua are captured, Kurapika meets with Light Nostrade. He learns that the 10 Mafia Dons have hired a group of professional assassins to eliminate the Phantom Troop, and that Light wants him to join the assassination team. After meeting up with the assassins in the auction building on the night of September 3rd, he's told that Neon has slipped away from her guards to attend the rescheduled auction herself. Using his Nen ability, he manages to find her whereabouts. The auction building is once again attacked by the troop in revenge for Uvogin, and most of the hired assassins and 2,000 Mafia gangsters protecting it are killed quickly. The Phantom Troop fakes their own deaths, creating copies of all of the items and continue the auction using the fakes. Kurapika arrives just in time to see the fake corpses and win the last item, a pair of fake Scarlet Eyes. The next day, September 4th, Kurapika meets with Gon, Killua, and Leorio again. He tells them about the secrets of his Nen abilities and his connection with Hisoka, knowing that they're true friends. Now that Gon and Killua have learned his abilities, they realize the threat Pakunoda poses. He then receives a message from Hisoka saying that the bodies are fakes. Kurapika decides to keep chasing after the Phantom Troop alone, but Leorio, Killua, and Gon want to help him. While following the Phantom Troop, Gon and Killua are again captured. Pakunoda questions them again and finds out who Kurapika is. With the help of Leorio and Melody, Kurapika manages to capture Chrollo Lucifer before Pakunoda could reveal what she's found out. When Pakunoda comes with Gon and Killua to meet him for a hostage exchange, Kurapika uses his judgment chain to forbid Chrollo from using Nen or communicating with the other Phantom Troop members, and also to forbid Pakunoda from revealing what she knows about him. After the exchange, Kurapika collapses from exhaustion due to his continual use of his Scarlet Eyes. Once he recovers, he leaves Yorknew City to continue his search for the Scarlet Eyes. Greed Island Arc. After Killua returns to Greed Island, he informs Kurapika of the possibility that the judgment chain on Chrollo was removed. However, Kurapika assures Killua that it's still staying in Chrollo's body. After that, he has a short conversation with Light Nostrade, who's in a state of great confusion due to the loss of his daughter's prophetic ability. 13th Hunter Chairman Election Arc. Kurapika is one of the absentees during the first 4 rounds of the election. He hasn't visited the hospital where Gon's being given intensive care treatment, and is not available on phone either, which makes Leorio wonder what he may be doing. After the events regarding the election and Gon's recovery, Leorio tries to call him again. Kurapika is seen in a church making a funeral for his murdered comrades, ignoring all incoming calls. He managed to find several of their stolen Scarlet Eyes, looking more than ever determined to avenge them. Dark Continent Expedition Arc. Mizai Stam approaches Kurapika and requests that he accompany them to the Dark Continent, which Kurapika initially refuses. Mizai Stam asks Kurapika about his progress retrieving the Scarlet Eyes. Enraged, Kurapika warns Mizai Stam to choose his words wisely. Mizai Stam then reveals he's identified the owner of a large number of Scarlet Eyes that was uploaded in the Darknet site 6 months ago, and offers to share this information in exchange for Kurapika joining the Zodiacs and spending 2 months on a ship before reaching the Dark Continent. Mizai Stam points to Kurapika that figuring out the person's identity was only by mere chance after performing background checks on a VIP for the Dark Continent trip, and that it would be impossible for Kurapika to know from the video alone. Kurapika then asks if that person will be on board, to which Mizai Stam refuses to answer. Kurapika decides to join the Zodiacs on their trip since his main priority is to recover his brethren's eyes. He asks about the owner's identity, and as Mizai Stam spells the owner's name, he shows Kurapika a picture of Kakin's 4th prince, Sridnik Kokoro. Later, Kurapika is seen back in the church staring at the remains of his brethren, recalling all of the people he had threatened, coaxed, and paid off to get them back. He addresses his childhood friend Pyro about the prospect of his journey finally beginning, after he should reclaim the last of the eyes from the last monster, wondering where he should go after that, since he has no home to return to or anybody to welcome him back. En route to the Hunter Association's headquarters, he talks to Leorio on the phone, who demands to know his email address. Instead of answering, Kurapika says Misaistam informed him of Gon's situation and offers his help, but Leorio assures him that Gon's already fine. After the call ends, Kurapika thinks Leorio would have no problem getting accustomed to his new status, since he's not the bashful type. Misaistam also notes that Leorio seems to have a lot of faith in him, which Kurapika doubts since he believes his abilities wouldn't be of much help in the upcoming mission. Kurapika thanks Misaistam for the news about the Kakian prince, and Misaistam assures him in return that he can prioritize his own business on board, but warns him that dark rumors surround Sridnik and that he should be careful and aim for an amicable solution. Kurapika merely replies he knows how to deal with the likes of him. When Misaistam asks Kurapika what he'll do with the prince after getting the eyes back, Kurapika assures him that he'll yield to most demands as long as he reclaims his brethren. Misaistam presents the possibility of the prince refusing to hand him the eyes, which angers Kurapika, who then recounts the story of the two men who claimed they would rather die than give them up, but ultimately renounced without dying. He assures Misaistam it'll be the same for the prince, although Misaistam is still doubtful. Leorio greets Kurapika as he arrives at the headquarters, stating that the mission seems tougher than expected, and wonders about his opinion on it. Kurapika is already aware of the mission's premise, about traveling to a primeval continent. However, he isn't worried. Shortly after, Cheadle assigns Kurapika the codename Rat, and leads the two into the Zodiacs meeting room. She starts explaining about V6, the 6 countries representing each of the continents who all tried, except Kakin, to explore the Dark Continent in the past, and have failed. The 5 threats, the reasons behind V5's failures. Cheadle surmises that the difficulty level of all 5 ranges from B+ to A, whereas the Chimera Ants, most were ranked B. She explains their mission is to overcome any of the 5 threats and return with something beneficial to mankind, all while supervising and escorting Beyond to the pretend new continent, mentioning also they haven't reached a consensus on whether they should take Beyond to the Dark Continent or not, since there are pros and cons on both sides of the argument. At this point, Cheadle asks if there are any questions, and Kurapika raises a hand and says he has a few. His first being the number of allies Beyond has within the association, much to everyone's shock. Kanzai asks him how he would know the existence of allies in the first place, which surprises Kurapika as he thought it was obvious. It's clear that Beyond was waiting for his father's death and had been making preparations all along while being confident in his ability to control a project of this scale even under confinement. And since he was the one who turned himself in, it's clear involving the association is also part of his plan. In order to pull the strings, Beyond needed both a competent right-hand man and a substantial group of followers, which Cheadle recognizes as Pariston and the Temp Hunters. Kurapika reflects that everything up to the election makes sense, and ponders his next question before getting interrupted by Misaistam, who asked for a talk outside the room. Misaistam reveals to Kurapika that he and Cheadle have already begun an internal investigation about the matter, and that they reached the same conclusion that there's a mole among the Zodiacs. And since no one has direct connections to Beyond, all Zodiacs are considered suspects. He continues to explain that the former chairman had appointed Pariston as the vice chairman for entertainment while refusing to listen to any objections. Misaistam voices his concern that Pariston might be the red herring to cover for the real spy. He admits to Kurapika that part of the reason he was chosen to join the Zodiacs was that he's an outsider, and therefore unrelated to either side. Misaistam then demands that Kurapika keeps the existence of a mole in the Zodiacs a secret, and Kurapika agrees. Kurapika later apologizes to the rest of the Zodiacs for making accusations without having a grasp on the complicated situation within the association, and states that he's willing to use his connections with outlaws to offer information about Beyond and Kakin that government sources could never provide. Cheadle later assigns him to the information team with Misaistam, Pion, and Sacho in preparation for the voyage to the Dark Continent. Through a flashback, Kurapika watches a video recording of the candidates during the final test of the 289th Hunter exam. He uses his dowsing chain to determine liars and eliminate spies from infiltrating the association. While listening to their Q&A session, he passes one applicant and disqualifies 2 others. The first for hiding important information, and the second, Muher, for mixing lies with some truth. Kurapika didn't expect many spies to have survived the psychological test of the first round, outsmarting both the thermography and lie detector procedures. Misaistam, who's in the same room providing assistance, is impressed by Kurapika's ability as he was overly modest about it. Kurapika suggests not overestimating it since the ability's mechanism is still unclear to him. Kurapika then offers his own interpretation. He can unconsciously perceive minute changes in the target that would otherwise go unnoticed by using the chain as a medium, but normally he would need to be directly in front of the subject. Kurapika then explains that the ability can only see through trained liars, meaning if a spy wanted to hide any clues to his identity, he could have somebody erase or alter his memories. That way, since the target doesn't know he's lying, the chain would most likely stay still. While Mizaistam mulls this over, Kurapika inquires whether there's anyone in the higher ranks of the Hunter Association capable of doing so. If they were on the enemy's side, they could easily pass all the tests. After reflecting some, Mizaistam concludes he doesn't deem it possible. He tells Kurapika there shouldn't be anyone in the Zodiacs with the ability in question. He then proceeds to explain why he can't be completely sure. In the past, there were 3 factions among the Zodiacs, corresponding to their political orientation. In normal missions, the members of each faction often work together, so Cheadle, Botabai, and Ginta, who alongside Mizaistam were a part of a moderate conservative faction supporting balance, can be counted out. And since they'll be split up into specialized teams during the Dark Continent voyage, all Zodiacs agreed to share information on their abilities. Kurapika asks if he will have to do the same, and Mizaistam reassures him of the opposite. Having been aware of his situation from Leorio, and since they'll be split into specialized teams during the Dark Continent voyage, all Zodiacs agreed to share information on their abilities. Kurapika asks if he'll have to do the same, and Mizaistam reassures him of the opposite. Having been aware of his situation from Leorio, he promises to not press for any details or divulge whatever he hears regarding his ability. In return, he won't be able to share with him everyone's abilities. Kurapika is relieved and realizes it's thanks to Leorio's intervention that things are going smoothly for him. Mizaistam admits he's been a huge help to the association as well. Continuing on with his rationale, Mizaistam sums up that, to their current knowledge, none of the Zodiacs can alter memories, and they probably don't know anyone who can do it, since he'd examined the detailed history of all the past hunts for all members. Kurapika objects that a person with that ability could have been given top-secret missions or worked outside the association, but according to Mizaistam, the results of the Hunter exam ruled out this possibility. In fact, if there were a mole of that caliber within the association, their party must have taken measures to ensure the passage of top-rated personnel such as Muher the mercenary and Yunde the biochemist. Mizaistam even admits that he had considered Yunde as a mediator between the science and flora-fauna teams, to the point where he doubted the machines when Yunde failed the first test. Mizaistam still acknowledges the possibility of those two being as mere decoys to distract them from even more powerful spies. But what really worries him is Pariston's quiet and quick departure after the election, as only the existence of an ally of the Zodiac side would justify it. Kurapika then activates Emperor Time, offering his help to test the members in secret. As the Zodiacs, minus the new boar and rat, share information about their abilities, Kurapika watches them through a video camera. He passes Kanzai and 3 others. Immediately after, his dowsing chain starts to swing, indicating that Sayu is the informant. Succession Contest Arc. Afterwards, Kurapika and Mizaistam watch the recording of the latter's conversation with Beyond. At the end of the recording, Kurapika states that Beyond has been telling the truth. Mizaistam concludes that Pariston is the mastermind, conspired with Sayu, and the one plotting to free Beyond. Kurapika suggests they leave Beyond alone until landing, since he's not hiding any ulterior motives. Mizaistam remains skeptical as Pariston and Sayu might still encourage him even if Beyond didn't plan to escape before landing. Kurapika explains why it's unlikely. Beyond's contract with Kakin includes taking civilians to the new continent as he wishes to highlight Hoikoro's achievement, so he won't be causing any problems en route. And in the worst case scenario of him escaping, V5 might turn the ship around, even if it means breaking ties with Kakin, all of which contradicts Beyond's initial decision of announcing a truce and letting himself be captured. Consequently, it would be unwise for them to do anything about Sayu in the meantime. Mizaistam agrees but says he'd rather avoid sitting idly while Pariston and his spy are plotting. Kurapika is then given permission to watch the part of the recording where Sayu explains about his Nen ability, 3 monkeys. He concludes that Sayu was much more stable during his explanation, contrary to his proclaimed worry. On the reverse side, the remaining Zodiacs were obviously nervous about the risk of the spy learning about their abilities, yet still desiring to trust the others, which in turn affected their body language. All stereotypical behavior of the innocent. Kurapika surmises that Sayu was telling the truth about his ability, and he's also on Beyond's side. He then proposes keeping tabs on Sayu in secret to uncover his plans while gathering evidence. Mizaistam agrees it's safer than tailing him at all times, even if it means leaving him free to act. Kurapika states that knowing Sayu's ability enables them to narrow down possible escape plans. However, if they were to restrain him too soon, Pariston may arrange something else. Kurapika expects them to escape right after the festival on the new continent. Therefore, the best course of action would be to arrest Sayu right before landing without Beyond noticing, ideally with some kind of proof to support their claim. In the off chance of failing to do so, Mizai-san will have to admit that he acted on his own in league with the newcomer, much to Kurapika's dismay. Mizai-san confirms his suspicions, stating he'll also be criticized after speaking of resolve when in reality he might be working behind their backs to identify the culprit. Some of the Zodiacs might even change their approach to the mission if they find out that Mizai-san's means were based on a farce. Later, Kurapika answers a phone call from Linsen, who tells them that 6 of Kakin princes are hiring bodyguards to eliminate risk factors aboard the ship. None of their identities are shown, only each prince's respective salary. Kurapika hires Izunavi, Hanzo, Basho, Melody, and Bisky Kruger, whom was recommended to him by Killua, so that the 6 of them can apply to all offers and he can get closer to his main target, Tsuridne Kokoro. After a brief clash with Bisky, he remembers Killua's advice and pacifies her with flattering. Looking at the 6 offers, he tries to deduce which of the anonymous employers could be Prince Halkenberg, who appears to have a close relationship with Srijnic. Again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, it's so weird. In hopes of finding his client, he singles out 2 offers that state the prince will personally conduct the interview, as it shows signs of maturity and confidence. One has the highest pay as a result of one-upping competition, and the other's pay never changes. Kurapika surmises Halkenberg is most likely the latter, as it signifies his strong self-esteem and self-control. He sends his request and heads to a hotel managed by Hoikoro, where he's surprised to discover that his employer is in fact Queen Oito, mother of 14th Prince Wobble. The Queen reveals the reason it was decided the offers had to be anonymous was to fend off assassins from infiltrating the popular prince's security. Halkenberg figured this much and didn't put up a post. On the other hand, Queen Oito is looking for guards that would try to contact Halkenberg, seeing most of them are either assassins or fake followers, which would simplify a give-and-take relationship. The assassins will get to wait for their chance while protecting them, and the followers plotting to manipulate Halkenberg can learn his weaknesses. Queen Oito explains that pro-guards only specialize in protecting dignitaries, and aren't trained in proactively killing someone, before she reveals the Black Whale Voyage will turn into a war due to the rules of Kakin's succession as enforced by Natsubi. When Prince Halkenberg becomes the next king, and if this succession battle becomes public, he'll be the one to suffer the most damage. For that reason, she hopes to buy hers and Wobble's safety by blackmailing Halkenberg with his participation. She tells Kurapika if he accepts the job, she'll give 10 times the promised pay provided he can get them off the ship alive, and if he leaves now, he'll still be paid the promised fee if he keeps this conversation confidential. Kurapika agrees to protect her so far as his terms are respected. Oito agrees and tells him about the gap in status between higher and lower wives. After reminiscing about her past life, she lets Kurapika hold her daughter. Sometime later, Kurapika boards the ship with Oito and Wobble. He repeats the security measures before thinking to himself that the battle strength of his side is weak, especially since some hunters may be spies. He has a phone conversation with Mizai-san, during which the latter informs him of the conditions of the 3 lower decks, leading Kurapika to think the meeting of the Zodiacs will be called off. He warns Oito that if something unexpected happens, they may be able to flee to the lower decks, escaping the succession war. While he contacts the system control room, he's startled by aura radiating off of Wobble's cradle. One of Oito's bodyguards is found dead in a toilet, all blood drained out of him. Kurapika inspects the body and concludes the culprit may have used Nen. However, the bodyguards who aren't hunters have never heard of it, while the hunters don't say anything. He later confronts them about their silence, causing them to reply they're surprised he disclosed the information. From their conversation, Kurapika gleans he's the only one who knows about the succession war, meaning Pariston may be unaware of it as well. When the corpses of 4 more bodyguards are found, Kurapika conjures his dowsing chain and, pointing a gun at his colleagues, states he'll shoot them if they lie. The assistants and hunters are revealed to be innocent, but the other 2 guards admit each of them is working for a higher-ranking queen. They're tied to their chairs before they continue their confession. From what they say, Kurapika infirms Wobble has received a Nen ability, which is probably triggered by her self-defense instinct. Kurapika deduces Wobble sensed Woody's malice and killed him. However, he has trouble accepting Wobble could have learned Nen in 1 month, but Bill tells him it would be possible with parasitic-type Nen. At that point, the Nen beasts of multiple princes swarm the room. Kurapika quickly contacts Melody and Bisky. The latter tells him that there were Nen beasts in their quarters, but only the hunters were able to see them, leading her to believe that it's a parasitic-type ability. Kurapika has Bill tell him everything he knows about that type of Nen and later accepts to reveal his agenda to improve cooperation. When Sayard stabs Curtin and the 2 restrained bodyguards to death, Kurapika prepares to fight him to take him alive. Kurapika manages to subdue Sayard and asks Bill if he's one of the important people mentioned. Bill claims that Curtin was more important due to his transformation skills, so Kurapika then tries to interrogate Sayard on his Nen type and ability, but to no avail. Although Bill first is against such a personal question, Kurapika convinces him due to the situation at hand and reveals Sayard's Nen type and a brief explanation of his Nen ability. Kurapika uses his index finger's ability to steal Sayard's Nen ability, while forcing him to go into a state similar to Zetsu. With Sayard's power stolen and aura drained, the Nen beast that was manipulating him escapes, while Kurapika summons a Nen dolphin that equips the power and gives a little more detailed explanation of Sayard's Nen ability. No longer of use, and to use less energy, the stealth dolphin is put on standby. Regaining consciousness and now restrained, Sayard explains what happened to him, and before being taken away by the Kakin Empire army for questioning, explains his Nen ability to greater detail to Kurapika. With only Kurapika and Bill left to protect Prince Wobble, Kurapika inquires what options they now have. Now that Curtin's dead, Bill expounds that they have to either ask Pariston Hill or, harder still, Beyond Netero to leave the Black Whale. The two review their options, with Kurapika refusing to use Sayard's ability due to the lack of information on the other princes. When Vincent arrives, he immediately kills one of Oito's attendants with the excuse of acting in self-defense, which leads Kurapika to realize he's not there as a spy, but as an assassin. Kurapika considers attacking Vincent, but quickly gives up when he surmises even an attack of self-defense would be held against him due to Prince Benjamin's influence. He raises his hands and declares Vincent as the biggest threat to Wobble's life. The hitman replies by asking him to quote-unquote cooperate, by which he implies he wants the two hunters' help in murdering Oito and Wobble, leading Kurapika to insult him mentally. Removing his contact lenses, he turns to the queen and asks if he trusts him. When Wobble reaches her hand towards him, Oito declares that she has utmost faith in him. Kurapika then stabs her with steel chain, transferring Little Eye to her. As Bill attacks Vincent, Kurapika steals the latter's ability and restrains his hand. He accuses Vincent of wanting to kill Wobble, which Vincent denies, but Oito promises she'll testify against him. Noticing his earpiece, Kurapika states he has an ability that can force him to tell the truth. Defeated, Vincent commits suicide by drinking poison hidden in one of his back teeth. Kurapika calmly states that it couldn't be avoided and points the earpiece to an agitated Bill, crushing it only after giving anyone who might be overhearing misleading information. Kurapika wonders if he should wait until the next banquet and have Oito use Little Eye on Prince Mariam's hamster. But due to the backlash of Emperor Time, he quickly realizes it's an impossible plan. Thus, he explains Little Eye to the queen and instructs her to use it on a fly or mosquito. He then declines the dolphin-like construct, which asks him if it should equip Vincent's ability. He orders Bill to search the room and Shimano to answer the phone. The maid informs him that there are three princes wishing to speak to him: Prince Benjamin, Prince Zhang Li, and Prince Tubepa. Since speaking with any of them first would be interpreted as an act of disrespect towards the others, who would also believe him to be allied with the first prince he spoke to, and not replying would be a declaration of war, Kurapika reflects on his next move, while Benjamin's new envoy arrives. Confident that Benjamin believes him to be a manipulator, he decides to speak to him and asks Bill to keep watch on Bobby Mina with Gyo, but he's surprised when he discovers Shimano has connected him with Zhang Lei. At the prince's request, Kurapika explains he decided to answer him because he would be the most open to discussion, but refuses to disclose any more particulars as they're likely to be related to the reason he was called Nen. After Oito and Wobble are allowed to come along, Kurapika accepts to meet the prince in 15 minutes. He finds out Benjamin has hung up, but Tubepa is still waiting. Her guard Maur offers to exchange information regarding Nen beasts. When the bodyguard declares he's about to come over, Kurapika replies that they have a private soldier of the first prince in front of the door, but letting Maur in, but not to him, may have consequences. They agree to meet in 1 hour. Kurapika then interrogates Shimano about her disobedience, finding her explanation, Zhang Lei being likely more open to discussion than Benjamin, whose soldier they have killed and who was unlikely to be on the phone himself, convincing. He consults her about the best course of action to take with Bobby Mina, to which she replies they have to let him or they'll be detained by the army, which would allow Benjamin to kill Oito and Wobble. With newfound respect for her, Kurapika contacts Benjamin's private soldier and informs him they're going to meet Zhang Lei. Bobby Mina resolves to wait in the room together with Bill. Kurapika, Oito, and Wobble thus reach Zhang Lei, who offers them bottles of water to drink. Kurapika immediately begins his explanation, which is partially directed at Oito, who's able to see Zhang Lei's sacred beast. Declaring the next piece of information could potentially affect the outcome of the succession war, he asks Zhang Lei if he intends to continue their conversation with the bodyguards Koventoba and Slaka, who are spies sent by other queens and princes, in the room. The prince pretends not to mind, but points out Kurapika likely has an appointment with either Tubepa or Benjamin afterward, and gives Oito 2 of his own bodyguards, Sakata and Hashito. Under Queen Unman's orders, Slaka goes with them too. On the intercom, Kurapika quickly checks on Bill and, after entering, updates him. With a number of enemies in their midst, Kurapika starts to get nervous due to Emperor Time's lifespan shaving condition, since he can't have Oito use Sire's ability. In order to have Shimano and Bill search the room for bugs, Kurapika proposes the other bodyguards and Bill follows him in the bedroom. This results in a brief argument with Babi Maina, which is won by Kurapika when he states he's doing it for the queen's peace of mind, as people were killed in the hall. Kurapika begins his explanation about Nen and the guardian spirit beast protecting the princes, but is shocked to spot a cockroach on the ceiling. As he wonders what to do with it, Oito orders the bodyguards to catch it. Kurapika summons Bill and Shimano and orders the former to catch it with Nen, allegedly in order to prove the truthfulness of what he told the guards. Bill and Oito understand his plan, which leads to its success. While Bill pretends to send out his aura, the queen utilizes Little Eye through Kurapika's dolphin construct. Kurapika then resumes his lecture asking Babi Maina for confirmation. He then proposes to teach Nen to all bodyguards within 2 weeks, stating the princes will decide if they should participate or not. To himself, he notes Babi Maina's refined N and speculates the soldier already knows that it was Oito who gained control of the roach. An hour later, Kurapika sees Oito turn the page of her notebook, from which she infers she finished investigating the first prince. However, he worries about his remaining stamina, as his eyes have been scarlet for about 3 hours. The queen suddenly screams that Momose is being murdered in the next room. To save appearances in front of Babi Maina, Kurapika pretends she only had a nightmare, but she knocks his hand away and insists on checking. Kurapika tasks Bill with it. As the prince's corpse is taken away from her room, Kurapika reflects the accident is worrying, as the timing seems suspect. Sakata interrupts his musings by demanding to know why Momose's beast failed to protect her. Kurapika replies her unusual sleeping pattern may be related, and that both things were probably consequences of the said beast being one of the 2 that attacked the other bodyguards. Despite acknowledging her mental state, Kurapika reasons that he has to ask the queen to keep using Little Eye. When Babi Maina asks Oito why she screamed, Kurapika realizes he knew about the queen all along, and is surprised when he withdraws with the other guards and removes his N. Oito agrees to keep spying on the princes, but specifies she's doing it for her daughter and not Kurapika. As she takes notes, Bill informs Kurapika some princes have already accepted his offer, but there are 2 problems. The first is the number of bodyguards, and Kurapika suggests they limit them to 2 per prince. Due to the fatigue caused by his Scarlet Eyes, Kurapika passes out before he can hear the second. 9 hours later, he regains consciousness. Bill, who hid his fainting fit from the other bodyguards, tells him Oito passed out when he did. Kurapika grows horrified at the thought that Emperor Time has remained active for that long and questions its limit. He then asks the queen to resume her surveillance from the 4th prince instead of the 12th. Oito becomes suspicious of his motives, but Kurapika explains that it's the best move, as the 1st prince and probably the 2nd have Nen users among their guards, and they're allies with the 3rd, while they know nothing about the 3rd. Kurapika then kneels in front of her, swearing again her and Wobble's lives are his priority. When Wobble reaches for him, he lets her touch his fingers. Oito thus agrees, but mere moments later, she screams in terror. Kurapika passes her shout off as a nightmare to dismiss the guards who came running, and she tells him that a woman, who Kurapika speculates to be Srijnich's spirit guardian beast, killed the cockroach. Kurapika's ability is thus dispelled, but the fatigue caused by the prolonged use of his Scarlet Eyes doesn't decrease. When Oito asks him to teach her Nen, Kurapika apologizes, as lending her a Nen ability had the side effect of opening her aura nodes. Not much later at 9 AM, the lessons begin. After all the participants have gathered around him, Kurapika, with his back to Oito's quarters, draws a line on the ground with white adhesive tape, demanding that no one cross it lest they be forced to leave or he'll use force without warning. Myuhan immediately steps on it, causing Kurapika to ask his name and affiliation. Dropping the tape, he states that will be Myuhan's final warning. Myuhan pretends not to have noticed and apologizes, but threatens Kurapika and indirectly asks him if he was simply planning on stalling them. The hunter promises once again they'll all learn Nen in 2 weeks. He then retorts that if all Myuhan can do is speak in a provocative manner, it says a lot about his prince, causing the guard to lose his cool. Kurapika immediately draws his gun, but Danjin holds back his fellow bodyguard and apologizes on their behalf. Kurapika suggests everyone state their name and affiliation. He subsequently repeats the purpose of the meetings, ensuring that even though there will be differences in individual proficiency, everyone will learn Nen in the promised time. To make the lessons go smoothly, he asks if anyone can already use Nen. Belaryante and Furikov raise their hands, and Kurapika nominates them supervisors. An unknown Nen ability suddenly attacks and kills Barrigan, with Sakata shooting the white snakes that crawl out of his clothes. Kurapika notices Zhang Lei's guards use 9mm bullets, which are hard to defend against even with Gyo, thinking he should also expect .45 caliber and HK handguns. He quickly deduces the attacker isn't a guardian spirit beast, but an assassin in their midst. He forbids his students from using firearms no matter the circumstances. He gives everyone 15 minutes to decide if they want to continue and heads to Oito's room. He uses his dowsing chain to ask Bill and Shimano if there are users of silent majority, earning a negative response in both cases. He explains to her that due to the usage of conjuration in the ability, it can't be Wobble's guardian spirit beast, which leads him to speculate that, due to the complex system of vows and limitations that must be in place, it's possible that if one prince dropped out of the succession war, all Nen beasts would disappear. When he goes back to the hall, nobody has withdrawn. He begins his lesson and has Bellarante and Furikov check on everyone's aura flow. Kurapika confronts Schedule and Yuhirai about their copious aura output, unattainable for a real beginner. For safety and secrecy reasons, he agrees to speak with one of them at the end of the lecture. Sakata insists on participating, using his superior experience and the deal with Prince Zhang Lei as leverage. Kurapika is reluctant, but Yuhirai gives his consent, stating Prince Halkenberg would do anything to put a stop to the succession war. Yuhirai explains about his strange mark, which Kurapika suspects to be the work of a soliciting-type manipulation ability. The two convene that it's related to the prince's Nen beast, and that it serves as a symbol of unity, expressing a contradiction inside Halkenberg. He wants to put an end to the monarchy, and the fastest way would be to win the succession contest, but he refuses to participate. However, his guardian beast wants to fight. Kurapika tests Yuhirai, determining he's not fully awakened to Nen, and warns him that if Halkenberg really wants everyone to be the same, the limitations that are probably in place risk being severe and affecting everyone who bears his mark. He manages to convince him Queen Oito wants to escape the contest too, adding that the lower princes must band together or they'll be killed off one by one. He then resolves to contact each of them via the Hunter Association. Kurapika returns to room 1014. Unable to return to his real body, Hanzo enlists his help. Due to clearance issues, Kurapika replies that the most he can do is ask Halkenberg's guards to contact room 1013 for him, but he'll be able to do so only the following day. Shimano informs Kurapika that the captain of the guards of Prince Mariam is on the phone and would like to speak to him. Kurapika attempts to convince Verge the room he's in has been isolated due to a Nen ability, but the bodyguard ignores him and requests that he investigate about the identity of Momose's killer. When Kurapika reveals he already knows who the culprit is, Verge initially pretends to be accommodating, accepting to open the door to a Hunter Association member in exchange for the information, but then asserts that he's not convinced by the rumors spreading about Nen, which seem too convenient for the Hunters. Still hoping to form an alliance, Kurapika tells him that the killer was Tufty and how he carried out the murder. Verge states that Kurapika's explanation has only strengthened his belief that the Hunter Association intends to weaken Kakin from the inside, and hangs up. Kurapika relays his impressions to Hanzo and asks him to stay in room 1013. He warns the ninja that Verge might suspect the presence of a mole in their midst, since he didn't inquire about his sources. When Hanzo asks him what he ought to do, Kurapika tells him to prioritize finding information on how to ensure Prince Mariam's safety. When Hanzo leaves, with Bobby Mina's consent, Kurapika answers Sakata's question about room 1013, adding that he suspects the Nen beast of the 13th prince to be involved. Meanwhile, he wonders about Bobby Mina's conduct. At 10 a.m. of the following day, the lessons resume, but Muhan is killed by silent majority as soon as he steps onto the toilet. While giving dispositions to everyone else in the room, Kurapika surmises the user can see and control the snakes from afar, which likely makes them a manipulator. Satobi and Maur accuse Kurapika's faction of being responsible for the attacks and of using the lectures as bait. The rat acknowledges that the circumstantial evidence might be enough to indict all of them, which could result in Oito and Wobble being imprisoned separately. But Laurente comes to Kurapika's aid and insists that if the lectures stop, the real culprit will get away, and everyone will lose their chance to study the other prince's defense. Kurapika asks to speak to the hunter in private and thanks him. Bellarante requests to talk to Bill for 10 minutes so as to make his report to room 1013 without seeming to talk to himself. Over the next few days, the lectures continue without the user of silent majority making another move. On Friday, he feels an incredibly powerful aura, but he resolves to keep his calm so as not to weaken his own Nen. The morning after the banquet, during one of the lectures, Kurapika and Bill feel the rumbling aura surge again. They conclude it comes from an odd-numbered room. Kurapika assures Sakata that its signature is different from the one of Prince Zhang Lei's guardian spirit beast, and that therefore it's unlikely that it belongs to him. From the way it swells before disappearing abruptly, Kurapika estimates that it's an emission ability, which might be able to go through walls. Sakata then says that Kurapika's students are starting to have doubts about the training due to repeating the same exercise over and over. Kurapika replies that he'll start the next stage the following day and performs the water divination test as a specialist in front of them. After explaining its purpose, he points Latiolus as his most advanced disciple to provoke some of the other bodyguards into being competitive. He states that one's Nen's category should never be revealed and that the screenings will be conducted in a separate room and witnessed only by Bill and him. When Maur, Satobi, and Danjin object, Kurapika justifies his decision with the requirements of the training, the risk he took by showing his own Nen type, and his camp's wish for a stalemate, which means that he has no intention of gathering intelligence to hurt the higher-ranked princes. Once again, he adds that if they cannot accept his conditions, they can drop off the training. You know, my way or the highway, bud. One by one, Kurapika invites Latiolus, Maur, Yuri, and Satobi into the main bedroom. There, contrary to what he told them, he doesn't have them perform water divination, but after receiving their consent, he forces their aura nodes open with Stealth Dolphin and briefly gives them Bill's Eregaron ability. He then enforces a gag order preventing anyone from disclosing what transpired until every one of his students has supposedly taken the test, lest the training be cancelled. When the lesson ends, he thanks Bill for revealing his ability, and when the latter calls himself a coward for choosing room 1014 to guard because he believed he could avoid major fights and for resolving to stay out of shame, Kurapika points out that cowards don't steel themselves as he did. Hashito approaches him, demanding to be taught Nen right away, in return for allowing Temptori to be awakened last. Kurapika accepts, but warns Hashito that, since he hasn't taken the training, he'll be too exhausted to even move for a while afterward. At 11:30 of the following day, the rumbling aura can be felt again, and Kurapika observes that the intervals between one surge and the next are becoming shorter. Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.